By the time Maya sat down and actually did the math, it wasn't just an argument about who forgot to pay the electric bill. It was £340 a month. That's what she had left over after bills, compared to £1,200 for Toby. Same split, wildly different lives. Honestly, that's the thing nobody tells you about splitting money 50-50. It sounds fair. It sounds simple. Half and half. Done. No drama. But if you've ever sat across the table from your partner, doing quiet math in your head, wondering why you're the one who can't afford anything fun this month, while they seem totally fine, you already know that equal and fair are not always the same thing. And I've spent years looking closely at exactly this moment, the point where a couple's finances stop being about spreadsheets and start being about resentment, safety, and who feels like they're carrying more than their share. Not because either of them is barred with money, because the system they're using was never built for two different incomes in the first place. So here's what's coming. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why the 50-50 split quietly causes so much tension in relationships, and the actual alternative that couples use instead, one that takes about 10 minutes to set up and can change the whole emotional tone of your money conversations. If that sounds useful, hit subscribe, because we go deep into real conversations about money and love every week. Let's get into it. The hidden math nobody talks about. Let's start with the obvious question. Why does splitting everything evenly feel so fair on paper, but so unfair in real life? Here's the honest answer. Because a bill isn't just a number, it's a percentage of what you have. And when two people earn different amounts, the same £50 water bill takes a completely different bite out of each of their lives. Think about Maya and Toby again. Toby earns more, let's say £3,800 a month. Maya earns £2,100 when they split rent, groceries, insurance, all of it. Right down the middle, Toby is spending roughly 25% of his income on shared bills. Maya is spending closer to 45%. That's nearly double the financial pressure for the exact same lifestyle. And here's the part that really matters. Maya isn't complaining because she wants more money for herself. She's exhausted, because every single month, she's the one who has to say no to things. No to the trip with friends. No to the new coat. No to breathing room. Meanwhile, Toby genuinely doesn't understand what the problem is, because from where he's sitting, they're splitting everything fairly, equally, like adults are supposed to. This is the trap. Nobody's being selfish. Nobody's being lazy. They're both just using a system that was never designed to account for the gap between what they each earn. Why equal feels fair. But isn't look, I get why 50-50 became the default. It feels neutral. It avoids the awkward conversation about who makes more. Nobody wants to sit down and say, here's exactly what I earn, and then start negotiating percentages. That feels uncomfortably transactional for something that's supposed to be about love. But avoiding that conversation doesn't make the imbalance disappear. It just moves the imbalance somewhere quieter, into silent resentment, into one partner quietly picking up extra shifts they never talk about, into someone lying awake doing math they never say out loud. There's a version of this that plays out constantly. One partner starts saying yes to overtime, or takes on a side hustle nobody really discusses, just to keep their half of the bills covered without falling behind. And when their partner finally finds out, it doesn't look like love and sacrifice. It looks like secrecy. It looks like something's wrong, when really all that happened was the math never worked for them in the first place, and they didn't feel safe enough to say so. That's the real cost of a system that isn't actually fair. It's not just the money. It's what the money does to trust. What proportional splitting actually means. So here's the fix. And honestly, it's much simpler than it sounds. Instead of splitting bills 50-50, you split them according to what each of you earns as a percentage of the total household income. This is called proportional splitting. And the idea is that instead of equal contributions, you aim for an equal impact, where the bills take up the same percentage of each person's income, rather than the same raw amount of money. Here's how it works in plain terms. Add up both incomes together. Figure out what percentage of that combined total each person earns. Then each person contributes that same percentage toward the shared bills. So back to Maya and Toby. Together, they bring in £5,900 a month. Toby's share of that is about 64%. Maya's is about 36%. So instead of splitting every bill straight down the middle, Toby covers 64% of shared expenses, and Maya covers 36%. Same bills, same household. But now, both of them are giving up roughly the same percentage of what they actually take home, which means both of them have roughly the same amount of breathing room left over at the end of the month. That's the whole shift, not who pays more in raw pounds, who feels the weight of it equally. How to actually set this up without it feeling awkward. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. This sounds like it requires an incredibly uncomfortable conversation about income. And look, it can feel that way at first. But here's a gentler way to bring it up. One that doesn't feel like an accusation or an audit. Instead of saying, "How much do you make?" try framing it around the outcome you both actually want. I've been thinking about how we split bills, and I want us both to feel like we have similar breathing room at the end of the month. Can we look at the numbers together and see if there's a way to do that? That question isn't about blame. It's about a shared goal, both partners having a bit of freedom left over. Almost nobody says no to that framing, because it's not an attack, it's an invitation. Once you're both willing to look at it, the actual maths takes about 10 minutes. Add your two incomes, divide each person's income by the total. That percentage becomes their share of shared costs. You can even build in some flexibility, reassess it once a year, or whenever someone's income changes significantly, like after a raise, a job loss, or going part-time for childcare. What this changes emotionally, not just financially. Here's the part that surprises couples the most. This isn't really about the maths, it's about what the maths represents. When bills are proportional instead of equal, something quietly shifts in how couples talk about money. The person earning less stops feeling like a burden. The person earning more stops silently feeling like they're being taken advantage of, even when that was never true. Both people start from the same emotional starting point. Enough is being asked of each of us, and neither of us is drowning while the other one is fine. That's not a small thing. That's actually one of the biggest predictors of whether couples fight about money constantly or occasionally just talk about it like adults. So here's what all of this comes down to. 50-50 feels fair because it's simple, but simple and fair aren't always the same thing, especially when two people are bringing home very different incomes. Proportional splitting, giving based on percentage of income rather than a flat half, doesn't ask either partner to sacrifice more. It just makes sure the weight of your shared life actually lands evenly on both of you. If any part of this felt uncomfortably familiar, you're not alone, and you're definitely not doing anything wrong by feeling exhausted under a system that was never built for your specific situation. The fix isn't dramatic. It's just honest, a conversation, some simple maths, and a willingness to build something that actually works for the two people in it. If this helped you see your own money conversations a little differently, hit subscribe, drop a like, and share it with someone who's been quietly doing that unfair math in their head for way too long. And if you're ready to actually have this conversation with your partner, you already have everything you need to start it today.